Welcome to Born on the Bayou Sports, a Houston sports show made for Houstonians by Houstonians. Join Tim Costello and Scott Barzilla every week as they break down the latest in Houston Astros, Rockets, and Texans news. Tim's a former minor league broadcaster, and Scott has written 2 books on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Javier could get it figured out, it would make things a lot easier because he was that guy everybody was counting on this year to be a Cy Young candidate, take that big step forward and help anchor this rotation with Fromber.
Since he's come to Houston, you can look at the development of guys like Carlos Correa defensively, Jeremy Pena defensively. I mean, you can know Alex Bregman's, certainly I think a better than average third baseman.
And now you're putting teams in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Now here comes Will Anderson. Pin back your ears, let's go. So if you're Bayou born and bred, or just like spending time in the H, sit down, relax, and stay Houston strong. Welcome all my friends to the show that ends in about an hour. Born on the Bayou Sports, Tim Costello, joined as always with Scott Barzilla. Scott, welcome in. It is. It's one that we like to call the Barzilla Major, as Scott tries to get his golf game to peak. This one time a year, we did an equipment change. We've looked at some strength and conditioning, some swing changes. Scott had eye surgery, everything, trying to get ready for this one weekend. Yeah, sometimes when you don't play a course frequently, right, and you get out there and you don't play golf frequently, it's hard, right? This is not an easy game. And when you don't know where to hit it and you're just hoping to hit a good shot and hope for the best, it makes it that much harder. So, for someone like yourself who doesn't play a lot, who probably doesn't play this course a lot, getting second place money is always a good way to start the event. Yeah, man, I would love an opportunity to waste away in Margaritaville with you. Hopefully at some point I'll get a chance to get down there and play in that golf-a-thon. It's just, events like that really are tough for a guy like myself. Of course you never play. I have a fairly low handicap. I'd have to shoot 72, 73 to have any chance at money out there. Playing with a bunch of guys that I don't know, Element, I don't know. It makes it a lot tougher, right? It makes it a lot tougher. I think I play my best golf when I'm very comfortable and know the people that I'm playing with and can enjoy myself on a golf course at a level that I normally like to be at instead of worry about being on my best behavior playing with new people. So definitely looking forward to it, but got some, tweaks in the game to make before I'm ready for that. And hopefully need my daughter to be a little bit older to be able to leave the wife for a weekend like that. Yeah, man. It sounds like you need to look at the Bandit over there in New Braunfels, San Marcos area. They got like places to stay at. Of course, probably isn't as nice as what you're looking at, but there's some good options over there, that San Marcos area. But speaking of good options, there's some new options for the Texans as they get ready for game days every Sunday morning. 4 new jerseys came out today, Scott. 3 new helmets. I got to say, again, I think the Texans absolutely nailed these uniforms. Yeah, it was right before the 2014 season, I want to say, maybe 2013, but they were not good yet. Absolutely, because the Texans aren't the only team with new uniforms in the NFL, right? Other teams are coming out with new jerseys. You're allowed 3 helmets now in the NFL, but no one has this buzz. And again, part of it absolutely has to do with what you said, the success on the field. But another part of it, again, has to go to the McNairs. I think Cal and especially Hannah have done an unbelievable job of kind of getting the feel of the city, understanding what people want in uniforms, what aspects of Houston they want to see represented, and I think that they are in tune, right? Like I think there's so many owners, and I think at different points in this ownership, we could easily have said the McNair Group was out of touch with reality, out of touch with the city of Houston. That's no longer the case. This if you listen to Hannah give interviews, she's a fan, just like the rest of us. She has that fuck the Tennessee Titans attitude that we all love here in Houston. They wanted to use more of the Houston Oilers blue in the uniform, and Amy Adams wouldn't let them do it. And she literally went on TV and blasted Amy Adams for that. And the Titans fans don't love it, but you know who does? Is the residents of Houston and Texans fans. And so this rollout has been fantastic. If you look at the way they did today, they had a party starting at 10 a.m. At the team store. There was an online release with multiple videos. There was a video of the players' reactions to the jerseys. There was, perfect little leaks. There was, hey, here's the face mask. Here's this. There's plenty of people who tried to guess what these uniforms would look like. No one got it exactly right. And again, I think they look fantastic. I think they're going to look even better on the field. I think this is going to be, hopefully a whole new era of Texans football, right? Because let's be honest, there was not a lot of success in that previous uniform. For the fact that we had 20 years of football in that uniform. I think it was 2004, right, when we became a franchise. Maybe 2003. 2. Okay. I remember I was in 7th grade. I was trying to remember what year that was. But it's okay. So 22 years in that uniform, and you've won, I want to say 2, 3, 4 total playoff games. Does that sound right to you? So I think when you look at, we use the Houston Astros as an example. Uh, Brick red and black pinstripe jersey. When we moved on from those, there wasn't a ton of success in those jerseys, right? They went to a World Series and lost. But you know what? There's a hell of a lot of success in the blue and orange, and you kind of associate that blue and orange with winning baseball, regardless of what's happening right now. But hopefully the same thing can happen with the Texans, right? Because when the Astros changed uniforms, it kind of seemed like the tide was changing with them. That first year they went 70 and 92 or something like that. And then 2015 rolls around, they sneak in as a wild card. And then 16 was disappointing, but 17 on, hey, this is a whole new ball club. Maybe we have the same thing with the Texans, where those new uniforms usher in a new era of Texans football, where, hey, when you think of this H-Town H, you think of winning. You think of multiple AFC championship games, hopefully multiple Super Bowl trophies. I don't know, man. I'm caught up in it. I'm caught up in the emotion of the draft is coming, new uniforms. Again, man, they just timed it perfectly, because now we're not going to have a first-round pick, but you're still going to have brand new picks holding up these brand new uniforms, man. It's going to look awesome. I got orange and blue. I'm an Astros guy. Tennessee made one too, didn't they? And Scott, real quick, it almost makes you wonder, how much were the missteps on Casario, and how much were they on Easterby? Because we've looked at Casario without Easterby, and I think he's a completely different general manager than when he had that other guy in the building. Absolutely. Because I think if we look back, do you remember when the iPhone got left at a bar, the early iPhone, the prototype, and Steve Jobs comes out and he sues everyone. And we laughed at him. We were like, this is fucking ridiculous. Some idiot left at a bar. It is what it is. And you couldn't have been more right. The McNairs handled it beautifully. And I think this uniform is kind of, hey, this is the Cal and Hannah era. And we had the Bob McNair era, and he kind of ushered in those uniforms when he ushered the team into Houston, and it was great. Like that era was fine for what it was, right? For a city that lost its team, that was fantastic. But now it's been, as you said, 22 years. We're no longer happy to have football back, and the Cal and Hannah era, and I want to call it that specifically because I think the Cal era started earlier than the Cal and Hannah era did. When Hannah McNair became involved at a high level of this team, everything changed. And and it is no way Cal's fault that was what happened. I think it's Cal's credit to ask his wife for help, right? I think you, as a married man, would agree you are a much more capable human being now, having the support of your wife than single Scott Barzilla was, right? Single Scott Barzilla probably made some dumb choices in his life. Married Scott Barzilla with a great sounding board, much different guy. So I think Cal's in a similar position. Like when I love to soundboard things with my wife, hear her opinion before I do anything. And so when you're running a football team and your sounding board was Jack Easterby instead of the most trusted person in your life, your partner, your wife, now you've got that person by your side helping you run this team. And I think the results are out there for everybody to see. You've got a trusted partner by your side who believes in you, and he believes in her, and you can see you can see that they've got a pretty great relationship when they interact with each other. This doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem fake. They genuinely seem to enjoy being around each other. And I think that vibe permeates throughout the franchise. I think when you've got the two of them in the building together, setting the vibe together of trust, of building something that we want to be proud of, that we can pass on to our kids, that permeates throughout the whole building. No, that makes a ton of sense. And to even give it a real life example, for those of you who are new to the podcast who didn't come over from the Snap Hook, I was the president of a soccer team this time last year. I was lured away from the job I was doing to run a minor league soccer team, but the owner was somewhat of an Easter Bay type character. He was a fraud. He lied. He cheated. And in the end of the day, 3 months into taking that job, the team's bankrupt and I'm without a job. If I would have had my wife, my bullshit detector, there with me, bringing her to some of these meetings where they're trying to recruit me, I think things might have gone a little bit differently. I've long thought about, what would happen if I had brought my wife to me to this initial dinner where they're showing me budgets or showing me this other stuff or talking about what they want to do, to have been able to hear her opinion on them as people. Because I think sometimes with Cal, especially, your dad had just passed away. You have this guy coming in saying he can help fix your team. He was part of the Patriots. You get amped up on the opportunity. That's what happened to me is I was so amped up on the fact that someone wanted me to run their team. I was willing to overlook some of the bullshit. Same with Cal. He had somebody coming in, sold him hard, had a silver tongue, so to speak. And he didn't have his wife in there at that time to say, hey, this is bullshit. And, as you said, that's what you need. I think behind every successful man is a great relationship, whether it be a life partner or your wife or whoever it is. But I think very few people get to the top of what they do without having a strong support system behind them. And I think, for a majority of us, those listening to this podcast, it's your wife or your partner. Maybe it's your parents or whoever it is, but you've got to have that support system. And I think now that Cal and Hannah are running this thing together, everything just flows better. the D'Amico as Mike Tomlin is exactly what you're looking for. Whether it's or Tomlin or Belichick or whoever, I feel like you've got that guy, right? Like you've got that 15, 20-year guy. He played here. The guys that he played with want to come back and help. Last year it was Jonathan Joseph who had a coaching fellowship, who Derek Stingley credits with what was a great year for him because Jonathan Joseph was there in training camp helping him. We hope he's back again this year. You had Kareem Jackson come in midseason wanting to play for this team after being cut from Denver because he loved D'Amico Ryans after having played with his captain. J.J. Watt has come in numerous times. He said he doesn't want to be a coach, but he said he'll do whatever he can for his former captain. And then you've got Brian Cushing, who I believe is on the staff as a strength and conditioning coach. Again, willing to come back for his former captain. So D'Amico commands that respect, and you've got your quarterback, you've got your weapons, you've got a crap ton of weapons on defense, and the franchise is in a great place. But speaking of weapons, Scott, we are T-minus 2 days away from teams adding more weapons through the NFL draft. Now, obviously, Texans don't have a first-round pick, so we won't get to see a prospect holding up those new uniforms on Thursday night. As of now, you never know. Costello has pulled off a lot of trades during draft time in his time with the Texans. But let's start. Draft day predictions, Scott. Whether it be for the Texans or for the board in general, what are you expecting to see this year? Absolutely. I think the one that would shock people the most maybe is tight end. But if you have a guy who falls to you, because again, the Texans are going to have a pretty high second round pick, right? So if there was a late first round tight end who maybe falls because of the quarterbacks who get drafted, I would love another weapon as a tight end, a safety. I know we haven't talked a ton about safety, but Petrie is okay. I think he didn't grow the way we thought he would in last year. And as nice as Ward is, it's been a long time since he's played a full season. So if you had a legitimate third safety that you could rotate in there, who could maybe on a dime or nickel package could be that extra safety slash linebacker on the field, or you can move Petrie down into the box a little bit more in those nickel packages where he is such a good tackler and have two good coverage safeties at the top. I wouldn't be surprised too, Scott, if the board falls a certain way, if the Texans trade back in late in the first round, if there's a player they really, really like who's fallen. I understand you traded back out of the first round, but you basically use that to get Diggs, and now you still have 2 second-round picks this year and multiple third-round picks. I could see the Texans, doing maybe a second and 2/3 or something like that, or I don't know. If there's a player that they love who's fallen down the board, I wouldn't hate the idea of trading up to go get him because you have the capital to do it. And as you've mentioned, and I agree with you, there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that go high in this draft. It's going to happen, right? We know most likely first 2 picks are going to be quarterback. 3 is Arizona. I wouldn't be surprised if someone trades up with them to go get their quarterback. We know they want Marvin Harrison Jr., but if you've got someone trading, let's say Minnesota trades to 3, then 1 takes quarterback, Two, the Redskins probably take a quarterback. Minnesota's taking a quarterback. New England's probably taking a quarterback. Now the first 4 picks off their board are quarterback. If Arizona can get back to 5, you could have picked up some capital and get the receiver that you want at the end of the day. I think we're going to see a pretty fluid top 10, depending on how these quarterbacks go. I think we all know the consensus number 1 pick is Caleb Williams out of USC. But Scott, are you a believer more in Daniels going number 2, or do you think it's going to be maybe the kid from Drake May from UNC? Who do you see the Redskins going with there too? Are you kidding me? He threw like 35 touchdowns last year. Yeah, Drake May put up huge numbers last year. Drake May put up huge numbers last year. I think that's what's concerning is he only did it for a year. Yeah, I could see that. But when I look at, so I'm looking at Drake May's numbers right now. 2022, he put up 38 touchdowns, 7 picks, threw for 4,300 yards. 2023, 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 picks. He put up numbers, Scott. I don't think that's the issue with Drake May. I think I think he's kind of one of those guys who's going to get dinged the same way maybe C.J. Stroud did when you look at the history of his college in the NFL. Not a lot of success coming out of North Carolina, right? Like you've got I believe Trubisky was a North Carolina guy. I believe the guy who was in Washington last year, Sam Howell, was there beforehand. There's just not a lot of success. I think that's hurting him. I think the watered down ACC is definitely hurting him. There's not a lot of competition out there. I don't know. Like I think the guy put up good numbers, but I'm with you on Penix. I think I read the Players Tribune article he wrote the other day, and just made me love him more. He kind of called out some of the people like Caleb Williams who have had quarterback trainers and nutritionists and all this stuff their whole life, where he's like, I'm just a guy from the hood who loved football and worked his ass off and did everything he could to get where he is. The thing that concerns me is he's had multiple season-ending knee injuries. I don't know. That scares me a little bit, but damn, he throws a great ball. And he's willing to stay in the pocket and take a shot and still deliver the football, which you have to do in the NFL. You can't get gun shy. You can't get happy feet. You know, you say what you want about Eli Manning, but he was willing to take a shot if it meant he got to get the ball out where he wanted it to go. And in the NFL, that's what you have to be able to do. You can't throw it early. You can't hold the football. You've got to take the hit and get rid of the football. And Penix does that fantastically. McCarthy, I don't know, man. He's going to go in the first round. I think someone's going to reach on him. He's got a lot of Alex Smith in his game to me. I think if he gets in the right system, somewhere where he's not asked to throw the ball a shit ton, he could be effective. He doesn't quite have the arm strength as everybody else. So those throws from the far side of the field, deep out, stuff like that, could be a little bit scary. He always had a good run game in college, so we'll see. But I think so. Definitely, like we're saying, Williams, Daniels, McCarthy, Penix, and May. Of those 5, who's not going in the first round? I think you mentioned an interesting one with Bo Nix. I think he would be a perfect fit in the second round to the New York Giants. I think they've still got some money committed to Daniel Jones. They're going to have to play him this year. So if you get a guy like Nix as your backup plan, you can cut Daniel Jones after this year and then say, hey, we're going to move on to Bo Nix. You're not going to pick him that high in the first round. That's just not what you're going to do. But that allows you to go pick somebody else who can produce and help eventually your second round quarterback, or if Daniel Jones hits, okay, and then you can trade Bo Nix down the line, similar to what the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins. Now on the Penix situation, I'd love to see a scenario where the Vikings do not trade up into the high picks and they wait and they take Penix in the middle of the first round. I think he'd be a fantastic fit for them. They already have a good receiver. They can add some other pieces. They've got the Texans' first round pick as well. To me, if you could get Penix with the Texans pick, if you're the Vikings, I think that's the move because you could pick up a weapon beforehand. You can add to that team. You already have a pretty decent team. If Kirk Cousins doesn't go down last year, you've got Jordan Addison on one side. You've got TJ Hawkinson as your tight end. You've got Justin Jefferson on the other side. You've got a pretty decent running game. And you had Kirk Cousins. So if you've got a guy who can come in and sling it early, and you don't put the pressure of, hey, we picked you in the top 5, you're the 23 overall pick or whatever it is, I think that's a great situation. You have Zach Darnold there, so if you want to say, hey, Darnold's our guy and Penix is the number 2 and he's going to learn, and then all of a sudden you go to him in the middle of the year or whatever it is, I think that would be a great landing spot for Michael Penix. I've been a fan of this guy all year. I'm a guy who stays up late. I don't go to bed early. It just so happened I watched, other than I watched more Washington Huskies games this year than anybody else, simply because I'm up late and they were on and they were exciting, and I kind of fell in love with Michael Penix's game. He throws a fantastic deep ball. I get that he had talent out the ass on that team at receiver, but he's just a tough son of a bitch who throws a good ball. And at the end of the day, isn't that what you want in the NFL? You want a guy who's tough, who can deliver the football, who can lead your team. He kind of seems to me maybe a little bit like a better Byron Leftwich. Byron had every bit of the locker room, the team leadership, stuff like that you wanted. He just didn't quite have enough talent, I think, to survive in the NFL. But that guy was a tough son of a bitch. I mean, he led a game-winning drive at Marshall with a broken bone in his foot where the linemen were having to carry him down the fucking field the whole way. You want to talk about toughness? I think Sean Payton's the perfect coach for Zach Wilson. Absolutely. I am excited for the first round, even though the Texans don't have a pick, for all those reasons you said. A lot of intrigue, a lot of teams that are in need of a quarterback. I think that's going to force guys higher in the draft than they probably should go. Because I think you and I both agree a guy like Penix is a mid-first round guy. And I think teams are going to probably trade up into the top 10 to get him. Because if you miss out on, if you're not the Bears, you're not getting Caleb Williams. Take that away. So now you're looking at Jaden Daniels and Drake May, if you put those guys on the same level. Bo Nix and Michael Penix maybe a little below that. I don't know where you put J.J. McCarthy in those as well. Let's say you put them on the same tier. If you miss out on that first tier guys, do you trust that there's going to be someone worth it for you in the second, or even at your pick in the mid to late first, or do you feel the need to go up and get somebody? Texans traded up to get Watson. As you mentioned, the Chiefs traded up to go get Patrick Mahomes. Sometimes when you see the guy that you want, where you pick him doesn't really matter. I think you can, again, look at the Texans last year. They wanted 2 guys in that first round. They wanted to make sure they found a way to get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. What did they do? They went and found a way to get their guys. When you know a guy is your team, he is a fit for our team, and he's going to fit our culture, sometimes you throw all that other shit away and you go get your guy. You know, consequences be damned. This guy is my fucking guy. I'm going to ride or die with him. So there's going to be some of that. I guarantee you, one of these quarterbacks had a meeting with this with some team that left a coach going, "That's my fucking guy." You know, Seattle's going to be a team in the mid to late first round. They got Geno fucking Smith as their quarterback. How long is that going to last? You're telling me that wouldn't, as much as we love the Tank Dell story here in Houston, you're going to tell me if Michael Penix from the University of Washington became the quarterback of Seattle Washington's football team, the Seahawks, that wouldn't be a great story? I don't know. If he had a great interview with them and the Seahawks have a chance to trade up to 13 or 14 to go make sure they get Penix, I could see that happening. Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. Thursday night, we'll see. We'll absolutely see. But I gotta tell you, Scott, one of the things I am not excited for is when that Astros bullpen phone rings after the Astros have a lead and they find a way to fucking blow it. We can say everything we want about Jose Abreu, and I'm sure that'll get brought up at some point. But right now, this Astros ball club has probably cost himself 6, 7, 8 wins from the bullpen alone. Um, Brian Presley's blown save in Game 2 of the Washington National Series completely turned the tide of that series. If they win that series and take the first 2 games of that series, I feel like we're heading towards a sweep. And all of a sudden, we lose 2 out of the last 3 games, and next thing you know, the struggles continue. Going into the season, you and I were amped about the idea of Abreu to Presley to Hader. And right now, the Astros' ninth inning ERA is atrocious. They're being outscored something like 21-2 in the ninth inning so far this season. And no matter who they bring in, they just can't seem to get the job done. And it's beyond frustrating as a fan because I felt through 8 innings on Friday night, the Astros played a damn perfect ball game. 4-2 lead, timely hitting, did what you needed to do to win a game, handed over to Ryan Presley, who's been fantastic for you for years, and you get a catcher's interference to put a runner on first base, and then that guy comes around to score. And that's after Jose Abreu dropped a pop-up in foul territory that would have been the second out of the inning, and then the very next pitch, the guy hits a sac fly and gets an RBI out of it. So this bullpen is just, it's killing me. Jose Abreu's killing me. It's a tough time to be an Astros fan right now because I think those of us who have been in it for the long haul, we had some shit times. And I think maybe we enjoyed the last era maybe a little too much, or I don't know, because this sucks, man. This absolutely sucks right now to watch a game and have it just ripped away from you in the ninth inning like that so often. That's tough because they've both been equally bad, right? I think I was under the impression iron sharpens iron, right? Like I thought these two guys would feed off of each other. Ryan Presley came out from the moment Hader was signed, said, "Hey, he's the closer. No drama, no nothing." But it seems like that's taken the fire out of these guys. It seems like I don't know, man. I guess I'm more concerned about Hader because we have so much money committed to him in the future, right? Presley's deal is up after this year. Realistically, if things don't go great this season, you can trade Ryan Presley for prospects. He's a veteran arm. That could easily happen, right? So I'm not as concerned about that. But Hader this was a swing and a miss guy, right? Like we got this guy in to get swings and misses because weird things happen in the ninth inning. You and I have been around this game long enough to know that things happen in the ninth inning that tend to not happen through the first 8 innings. And when you have a guy, who's not a big-time strikeout closer, who's a contact-inducing closer like we had with Luke Gregerson when the Astros went to the playoffs in 2015, weird things can happen in the ninth inning. That's why so many teams have that swing and miss closer in the ninth, because you don't want base runners, period. You don't want a chance for an error. You don't want bullshit hits. Well, all that has been happening to Hader. He hasn't been getting the Ks early in the inning, right? He'll get up 0-2, 1-2, and be unable to put a guy away. And he still has good-looking K numbers this year because after he gives up 2 runs or whatever, he's pissed off and then strikes out 3 guys. But until that point, he's not striking out guys when we still have the lead. And that's what's concerning to me is this guy was untouchable for the last 2 or 3 years. His velo is down. He's getting not necessarily hard contact all the time, but he's getting contact at a rate that he pitched away from contact in years previously. Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Just because the money we have committed, um, we already have, we'll call it what, $40 million wasted into Jose Abreu. Like that's not turning around. I think we can all look each other in the mirror and be honest as fans right now and realize that's sunk money. So trying to save your investment or whatever, that's a sunk cost fallacy. That's the reason why people go down QAnon and don't want to come back because they feel like, well, I've already done all this. I can't just leave now. No, get the fuck out. Get away from Jose Abreu. Put him on a fucking raft and send him back to Cuba. Let's be honest. This guy can't hit water if he fell out of a fucking boat. All 4 of his base hits are singles. They were jam shots that squeaked through the right side. What do you got? One double. Okay, one double. But either way, he's bum is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but this guy couldn't catch up to fucking AAA heat. He would be a bench player in AA baseball right now. His swing looks terrible. He's swinging down on the ball like he's chopping fucking wood like a little leaguer. He is antsy. He is jumpy. He is not comfortable. He is somebody who is costing you ball games because now he's making multiple errors in the field. At least with John Singleton, He doesn't chase bad pitches for the most part. He's hitting above 200, and there's a chance he runs into one. Is he a great baseball player? Absolutely not. He's better than Brian Abreu right now. You got Joey Loperfido sitting in AAA. I'm nervous to bring him up. If you look at what Jackson Holiday is having happen to him right now in Baltimore, this is a guy who struck out a lot but had a lot of power in AAA. Major league pitchers will dominate that. Okay, if you have a hole in your swing, it'll get found. And now you're up here hitting a $150 confident shot. I'm not a fan of that. Let's let the kid mature a little bit in AAA and cut down that strikeout rate. However, Abreu is god-awful. Caratini can play first base. You got a guy in AAA in Cabbage with Major League experience who's not the future of the team. He can come up and he can play first base. Mauricio Dubon could play first base. Anybody. Any fucking buddy. Pick a fan raffle out of the stands. Before the game, you have the PA announcer come on. And tonight's fan raffle for first base, sitting in seat 126, row 3, seat 3, row 7. You're tonight's Astros first baseman. Report to the clubhouse to get your uniform, cleats, and glove. That would be better. That would be better. Yes, I am. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's what's frustrating to me is the Astros have been tight with the pocketbook for the most part for years now. They're not willing to go long term on guys. We get that. But you've allowed a lot of clubhouse leaders to leave this team, right? Springer was a guy who was a leader in this clubhouse. Correa was a guy who was a leader in this clubhouse. And whether you like his in-game decisions or not, Dusty Baker was a guy who was a leader in this clubhouse. And you can have a manager like Joe Espada, who's maybe not the vocal leader, if you've got those clubhouse guys to lead along the way. But it seems to me right now, Michael Brantley retired after the season. He was huge last year in helping this team. He called multiple closed-door meetings. We just don't have that guy. We lost Martin Maldonado, was another clubhouse leader. Now, I don't want Maldonado anywhere near a batter's box or even catching. But if he would have just decided to not play baseball anymore and come back as a bench coach, that would have been a much better option for everybody involved, because he's sucking it up in Chicago, and we could have used that kind of leadership right now on this team. Espada looks lost. I don't want to hate on a manager super early, but, I texted you, I think it was in game 1 of the series. It was a terrible call. Terrible call at one point. And I think it was a call that Dusty Baker would have been out of the dugout and would have got thrown out on to kind of rile the guys up and show them, hey, I've got your back. I'm not going to let this bullshit stand. Espada came out, asked one question, accepted the answer, and went back into the clubhouse. Sometimes you got to get tossed. I think you know it as much as I do. Sometimes they need to see that. Sometimes they need to see my manager's got my back. And I can't say it, but he will say it. And maybe he's just not that guy. But when you don't have that guy in the clubhouse, the manager's got to be that guy. And so I need to see some fire from him, because the way the team came out on Sunday after that loss Saturday is a problem for me. Because there was no fire. There was no give a shit. You come out again today and you lose 7-2. I understand that you've got a lot of arms on the IL right now. I get it. Christian Javier going on the IL is an absolute killer. So now you got Javier, Fromber, Luis Garcia, Lance McCullers Jr., all on the IL right now. And Urquidy. You've got 5 legitimate starting pitchers on the IL right now. That doesn't make this easy. I get it. And if some of those guys were here, the bullpen would be deeper, right? I truly believe when McCullers comes back, he would be a fantastic late inning piece. I don't think his future is as a starting pitcher with what we've seen with the arm issues that he's had. I don't know if he can learn to pitch every day, but I do think less innings on his arm would be better. But where we're at right now, this ain't working, man. This ain't working. There's no fire. Verlander's the only guy with any kind of clubhouse chatter going on out there. Pitchers getting jumped to start the game, which means that our pregame preparation is not what it needs to be. It's not good. It's not good right now. I'm still watching it as many games as I can. I'm still a fan. I still love this team. And it's because I love this team that I'm frustrated. And that's where we're at right now. Does that include the playoffs? Is the only one that ALCS game? No, that's my exact point, right? You could have a guy like Hintz, or you could have a guy like Dusty when you had Springer and Correa and Maldonado and Michael Brantley. Altuve's a Altuve's a lead by example guy, right? Like not every leader is the big rah rah speech guy. Some guys lead by example and they say, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna set a great example of how to do my business and I'm gonna play the game the right way and follow me. That was kind of the Biggio model, right? Like Biggio wasn't the rah rah clubhouse leader that some of the other major league players were. Biggio was the guy who went out and played every day and led by example. So when you look at this Astros clubhouse, I think they're devoid of that leader. I think you nailed it. At the end of the day, Jordan's kind of a quiet type. He's shown that he'll be a mentor, the way he's mentored Dubon. If you come to him and ask for advice on hitting, he'll give you that. Kyle Tucker's kind of seems like kind of a quieter guy. He doesn't seem like the big vocal clubhouse leader that you need. Bregman, as you mentioned, free agent. Verlander has that in him. I think he does. I don't know if that's who you can count on at this point though, because he's been hurt. He hasn't been in the clubhouse. He just got there, and so he wasn't going to be able to say anything. And then you're right. Jeremy Pena's in year 3. Yainer Diaz is in year 2. Who's going to say anything? Chas McCormick he doesn't have the cachet to come in and rip anybody a new asshole. Montero, what the fuck is he going to say? There's Jose Abreu should just sit in the corner and look at the wall and not say a goddamn thing. He should just shut the fuck up. He has no right to say anything. So you're right. There's a void in the player leadership category that I think comes from just attrition, right? You've had a lot of player leaders leave, whether it's through free agency or retirement in Michael Brantley's case, but they're not there anymore. And those voices are gone from the clubhouse. And I think, if Brantley was still on this team, there would have been a closed-door meeting already. There would have been some sort of like, guys, get your fucking shit together. We are the Houston Astros, for Pete's sake. We don't play like this. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Scott, let's shift gears a little bit. Time to talk about some good things. Who you got for us as a tip of the cap this week? Yeah, well, when you were telling me about that, I was definitely glad to hear your dad was okay. And for those of you who play golf or are outside, when it's not that hot outside, still remember to drink water. I think that's one of the times where you just don't feel as thirsty and you don't remember and you don't think to do it, and that's where it comes back to bite you. So to all our listeners out there, health and safety tip: drink your water. Even on those days where it's 65 and not hot, and you don't think about it, drink the water. Absolutely think about it and drink it. Interesting story: when I was going up to Craig Biggio's Hall of Fame introduction, Scott, the way we did it, I flew into Detroit. And then drove Detroit to Cleveland, Cleveland to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Connecticut, Connecticut to Cooperstown. We saw baseball games all along the way. And we went to a Pittsburgh Pirates game. And at the time, the Pirates were good again. It was McCutcheon's rookie year, I think, or maybe sophomore year. And my cousin was like, hey, did you buy tickets for this game? I said, nah, we'll just get them at the gate. Pirates, not going to be that big of a deal. He's like, hey, man, Pirates are good again, so you might want to, grab tickets now because they're probably going to be sold out. So I hop on. I get StubHub tickets. We get there. We're in line. And the Pirate Stadium is kind of weird where, they let you in the gate, and then they scanned your ticket. So everybody's ahead of us. They're hearing, a da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. And then they scan our tickets, da-da. And I'm like, that's not good. So she looks at them. She's like, oh, these are for tomorrow's game. And we have plans for tomorrow. We're gone. So, this is our one shot to see Pirate Stadium. Or PNC Park, rather. And my cousin looks at me like, you fucking idiot. You bought tickets for the wrong day. But I'm like, hey, we're already in the stadium, Mike. So she's like, hey, just walk up this way, turn around, and exit. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're going to do. So we walked up and then did not exit and kind of just kept on going. And we were just standing room only in it. We were eating fries, whatever. Well, then, Pirate security, is on to us. And they're making a beeline over to us. And Scott, I kid you not, a gentleman goes down with a heart attack in between us and Pirate security. So obviously, Pirate security had to provide medical attention to the guy who went down with the heart attack. My cousin and I scurried into the team store, bought a couple Pirates hats to disguise ourselves, and went to a different part of the stadium, enjoyed the rest of the game. I then sold the tickets I had for the next day on StubHub, got my money back, and trip continued. But yeah, a potential medical situation saved me an embarrassing moment in the Pirates Stadium years ago. I am going to tip my cap to Taylor Swift this week, Scott. For those who don't know, she came out with the Tortured Poets album. It is absolutely fantastic. I am a Swiftie. I'm in. I'm all in. Not only did she release the album, she came out at 2 a.m. and made a double album, Scott. She threw another 14 songs out there. 31 songs this woman released. They're all bangers. So well written. I can't imagine being that skilled or that creative, right? I would love to have an ounce of her fucking talent. She writes all her own songs. She records them all herself, owns all the rights. I don't know how you can't tip your cap to that because she continues to nail it. She keeps her fans happy. And I don't know if there's ever been an artist who's more in touch with her fans. We've had tons of musicians throughout time, but has there ever been one that gives the fans what they want more than Taylor Swift? I don't think so. Well, Scott, it's time for the scumbag of the week. These people have offended us, and they need to be recognized as our scumbags of the week. Now, before we get too into this, I've got a bunch of scumbags this week, man. This was a frustrating week for me. There's one situation I'd like to address first. I don't know if this is a full-on scumbag, but there's a guy. We've got some issues on your Facebook feed. It's hard for me to sit back sometimes when people come in from your past with some off-the-wall bullshit. When you put an article out there and they come in with stuff. So maybe a little bit of that is on me because I do engage. But whoever the hell Bobby Balkus is, man, he's almost as bad as the guy who thought he was self-made and never had any help from anybody when he had a college scholarship. I would. Yeah, needed to be addressed. Because here's my thing with that, Scott, and then I'll get to my scumbag after. But my thing with it is he mentioned like all your articles are bullshit, right? Well, stop reading your fucking articles. It is not that hard to be like, you know what? I don't like Scott Barzilla's writing. I'm gonna like mute him. I'm gonna not. I'll still be friends, but I'm not gonna follow him. Or you know what? I'm gonna scroll past the article when I see it and not read it because I disagree with the stuff that he writes. But people are fucking incapable of that. Or they just see your headline and they Alex Jones it and they only read the headline and be like, this guy's a fucking idiot. Look what he wrote. He's an idiot. I don't need to read the article. I can tell by the headline you're a fucking idiot. Just, Bobby, I know you're not going to hear this, but I wish you would. Just keep on scrolling. Scroll on by. And I could take a little bit of my own advice. I took some shots at the guy. But you know what? You're coming from my podcast host. I'm gonna say something. That's just how I roll. But, ducks fly together, in the words of Coach Bombay, Scott. But you gave away hand sanitizer, Scott. You son of a bitch. All right, let's move on into some real scumbags. Again, I've got one more person I want to shout out before I get to my full one. I mentioned my frustration last week as my scumbag with the Major League Baseball Umpires Association. Well, right after I do that, Hunter Wendelstedt goes and just fucking jackasses himself all over the place, where he is clearly seen on video a fan chirping, Hunter Wendelstedt reacting, throwing out Aaron Boone, and then doubling down after the game, saying there's no way it was a fan. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never thrown somebody out for a fan comment. Well, Hunter, you just fucking did. And even after he saw the video, he tripled down on it and said Aaron Boone is in charge of the Yankees bench. So, Major League Baseball Umpires Association, you guys continue to be fucking scumbags. But now my real scumbag. It's been a week, Scott. I have a Facebook friend. A gentleman I did some stuff with when I was with the Air Hogs. We stayed friends. He has a son who is a freshman in high school. And this kid has been on 10 to 12 different college recruiting trips as a quarterback already. And that to me is a problem. Because that's way too young. That is way too young for these kids to be going to camps, to be spending money on recruiting trips, to drive your kid to OU from Dallas. Because it's now putting college athletics into that same... It's the same thing that's happening to Little League, where now it's not cool to play Little League anymore. You got to play select ball. Same thing happened in basketball, where you don't play City League, you play AAU. It's become a game of have or have not. Well, now here we are with the NCAA doing the exact same thing. Kids are getting recruited in 8th grade, in 9th grade. They're going to quarterback camps at the colleges in 8th grade, in 9th grade. And now if you want your kid to be exposed, you got to start bringing him to these things in 8th grade, in 9th grade, and get him in front of these coaches early on. And that's a problem for me, Scott, simply because not everybody can afford to do that. We were just talking about Michael Penix Jr. and how he had to kind of go at it the rough way versus Caleb Williams, who had everything on a silver platter for him. College football isn't about who's got the most money. The whole thing should be about getting the most talent possible to your university. And the system that we have set up right now, where it's beneficial to pay for your kid to go to OU football quarterback camp, to go on these official visits in 8th fucking grade? That's outrageous, man. Like, it's absolutely outrageous. And the coaches can't initiate it at this point. The players and parents are the ones initiating it. And we've got to stop allowing it. We allow it because it's a moneymaker for the university. It's a moneymaker for the NCAA. And it's all about the fucking money. And I get people up in arms about NAL and all this other stuff. Let's look at the real root of the issue. It starts in 8th grade. These kids are being fucking targeted in 8th grade football. None of them even have a developed throwing motion yet because the ball's too heavy for them. And we're recruiting fucking quarterbacks in 8th grade? Absolutely disgusting, man. NCAA, you get it this week. I do, yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. It's so one of the things that drove me crazy is when I got to Clear Lake High School, they told us from the beginning, you get one. You get one sport. Pick it and be good at it. And if you're an unbelievable athlete, you could probably play like football and baseball. But that's about it. You don't get to play two sports. And when I went to see Craig Biggio's Hall of Fame introduction, John Smoltz was in the same class. And in John Smoltz's introduction speech, he literally talked about exactly what you said. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, so I couldn't play baseball year round. And so what that allowed him to do was to fall in love with baseball because you loved getting ready for baseball season. You loved the looking forward to baseball season. If it's always baseball season or it's always football season, do you ever miss it? Do you love the game? Do you like crave the game? And you don't, because you never had a chance to not play that game and play something else and realize I definitely love football more than everything else, or I love baseball more than everything else. And we just don't give those opportunities to kids. You know, with my own daughter Sawyer. She played soccer, she's played volleyball, she's played golf, she does theater. We want her to find her lane. We're not going to force her down a path. I love golf, and I would love for her to be a high school or college golfer. But if she tells me I don't want to play golf, okay, what do you want to play? We'll play that, and I'll support you whatever it is. And we need to let these kids find it themselves and just stop asking parents to spend so much money. You know, everything in life is expensive as it is. It shouldn't cost, as you said, $20,000 for your kid to play volleyball for 6 years. Absolutely outrageous. But Scott, I know you've got a good scumbag force, so I'll let you take the proverbial reins here. Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said there. And Jim Crane has shown before that he will get involved and say, go get this guy or go make this move, right? I think we know for a fact that the Zach Greinke trade was Jim Crane initiate that. Jim Crane said, go get Zach Greinke. And that was with Lunau, right? That was pre all this stuff. So Crane has shown that he's going to get involved. And I too, I believe in our current GM structure. I just think you hired a guy who builds great farm systems, and you have no farm system right now. Our farm system is pretty depleted. You've hamstringing him money wise. You're overruling him and probably going to get a reliever and spending big money on a guy like Hader. The position he needs to be able to work with, you've got 2 more years for like $39.5 million left on it. So you've kind of limited Dana Brown's ability, right? Like you brought in this guy who's a builder, but everything's kind of already in place. And so, yeah, Scott, I definitely agree with you. When you look at everything I said earlier about clubhouse leaders leaving, that comes down to the way Crane wants to do his contracts, right? He didn't want to pay these guys long term. Then you look at Lunau, you had to do what you had to do there. Now, Click, I agree with you. Click was a fantastic general manager. He came into a almost impossible situation and went to an ALCS, 2 World Series, and won one of them. And you fired the guy for that because he thought Jake Myers was a good player. Well, then lo and behold, a year and a half later, Joe Espada is coming out of spring training saying Jake Myers is going to play big. So why the fuck did you fire Crane? Because Crane bet his career on Jake Myers, and Jake Myers is still here. And Crane couldn't get along with Dusty Baker. Well, fucking Dusty Baker's gone too. So, yeah, Crane made some questionable moves. I think I'll always have love for Jim Crane for the most part for what he put together, right? I think coming from the owner we had in Drayton, who would slap a Band-Aid on a big problem and lie to your face and say we're going to win 100 games this year. Jim Crane was at least a breath of fresh air, but I think you're right. He's made some poor decisions at the top of the hill, right? Like he got us to the top, but it's tough to stay there if you continually make poor decisions. You had guys like Brian Taubman. He never should have been there. If Brian Taubman isn't bringing national attention as an assistant general manager to the Astros the way that he was over the Osuna trade and talking shit to women and all that other stuff, I truly don't believe the Astros get hit as hard as they do with the scandal in 2020. That put a negative connotation on up to that point was a media darling. Everybody loved the Astros. We came from nothing, and now we were here. But then we go get Osuna, and when Brian Taubman's out there making an ass of the team, and here we are, put a target on the team and changed everything. So yeah, Jim Crane's made some questionable decisions and is definitely part of the reason that we're in the place that we're in. Jeff Bagwell's a Hall of Fame first baseman. He's not a fucking GM. Yep, you're absolutely right. The Astros have always kind of been, at least in Crane's era, more of a secretive team. They don't put a lot of information out there. Injuries are always secretive, and I think what, as fans, we appreciate with what the Texans have done is there's a pretty good sense of transparency there. They've allowed the fans to kind of see what the thought process is, to know here's who we're talking to. You don't feel like you're being bullshitted. And there are times with the Astros rather, that you just don't feel like the information is out there. They're real secretive with things, as you mentioned with the Hader deal. It comes out afterwards with Abreu that we're the only team to offer a third year, and that's how we got him. Well, why the fuck do you think we're the only team to offer him a third year, right? Like every other team in the league that made him a deal offered him 2 years, and we're the dumb fucking team that went with a third. Like a seasoned GM doesn't do that. Jeff Bagwell and Reggie Jackson, who were just like, we got to make sure we get this guy, were willing to do that. And Crane was listening to those guys, almost the same way that Easter Bay, as you said, got into Cal's ear. So it is what it is. Hopefully Dana can be a little bit more of a calming presence. And if we give him some time, there have been plenty of long-time playoff teams that had an off year, reset, and come back at it again the next year. If that's what happens, okay. I'm in it with the long haul for this team, and I know you are as well. As you said, you've been a fan through 4 different ownerships. I'm on my second, but maybe my third. I don't know. I'd have to look when Drayton bought the team. But either way, we're not going anywhere. If the Astros don't make the playoffs this year, it's not going to be the end of our Astros fanship. But still, it hurts. It sucks. We love this team. We want them to do well. So, when we want to hold Jim Crane accountable, it's because we care. It's because you and I are getting FUBO so we continue to watch this team. I'm paying MLB.com money so I can listen to Robert Ford, who, by the way, I meant to throw into the hat tip. He did ask Dana Brown, some tough journalistic questions about Jose Abreu at Dana Brown's last press conference. And, being the team's home radio broadcaster, that's not always something you expect from him. You kind of sometimes expect more cupcake questions. So for Robert Ford to come in and ask the hard-hitting questions that the fans want to know. You mentioned, the TV broadcast was doing a great job with it. The radio one is too. So we're all wondering the same thing with Jose Abreu, which is why is he still in the fucking lineup? Jim Crane, you definitely earned the Scumbag title for the fact that you set a situation in motion that allowed unseasoned people to negotiate a contract to bring in somebody like that. And that's kind of where you have to leave it. Alrighty. Well, that's about all we're going to have for you here this week on Born on the Bayou Sports. We appreciate everybody who joined us. Hopefully next week we'll be back talking some great new Texans players that are coming in. I'm excited to see where this draft goes. Texans have a lot of picks inside the top 100 and a guy who loves to make moves. So it should be an exciting draft recap next week. And who knows, maybe the Astros turn it around and play some great baseball, and we're talking about a winning streak next week, Scott. Alrighty, folks. Well, that's going to do it for us here. We appreciate everybody who joined us, and we will see you next week on Born on the Bayou Sports.